2023 general elections has reached an important stage that will produce the standard bearers for the various political parties who will vie for various elective offices in the land. Of course, there is also a lot of interest in the presidential race and its bouquet of aspirants, and Nigerians are already scanning the long list to see who has the pedigree to fix the many challenges that the country is currently facing.
And of course, Kingsley, that brings us to the fact that the fate of Nigerians in terms of options of candidates available to them will be decided by thousands of delegates who will vote at the special congresses and conventions of the various political parties.
No question about that. Apparently, the delegates, of course, hold the aces to decide who the standard bearers are, and whether this is by direct, indirect, or consensus mode or primaries. There is a thinking among analysts, judging from the trajectory of the delegate system in the past, that those in contention for the tickets could very well be sometimes money bags at the highest bidders, those with the financial war chest to who delegates in some cases.
Well, strong words there to describe them. In the opinion of political watchers and observers, inducement of delegates may not augur well for political process, as it may edge out candidates who have the pedigree but not the financial muscle. The exchange rate has now hit about 610 naira to $1, and many persons are already wondering if it has anything to do with the primaries of the political parties.
Well, I have no idea what's driving the current state of the naira, at least on the parallel market. There are all kinds of speculations as to what's going on. Now, the onus is on the delegates to make the party primaries credible, and persons are arguing that these delegates have a moral duty to the generality of Nigerians to ensure that the candidates that they choose to fly the flag of their respective parties for the various offices are those who have the right capacity for the offices they are vying for.
Now, these are issues and many more we shall interrogate on Good Morning Nigeria today as we discuss the political parties' primaries. I am Jummai Yusuf, welcoming you to the program. We are being live as usual on the network service of the NTA and from our headquarters studio here in the Abuja's capital city. And Kings, I want to call your name, God. This leave has sort of taken me off.
It's my great pleasure. Yeah, my great pleasure to welcome my colleague Jummai back from a well-deserved vacation. As you indicated, you rested well. Let's see what the effect will be in the coming weeks as the pressure of work piles up again. But that's what we do here in the media environment, as indeed elsewhere around the country. My name is Kingsley Osadolo. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria on this chilly Monday morning, I should say, in the Federal Capital Territory. In the course of the program, we have our complimentary segments, and this is the newspaper review and business and others. For now, here's Nolile Belame, who has the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Noli.
Good morning, Kingsley and Jummai. Good morning, Nigeria. And here is the news. The federal government has approved the appointment of Anamekwe Chukwunyere Nwabuoku to oversee the office of the Accountant General of the Federation, pending the outcome of ongoing investigation by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, of the Accountant General of the Federation for financial impropriety. In a letter dated 20th May 2022 and signed by Aliu Ahmed, Permanent Secretary, Finance, Federal Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mr. Anamekwe is expected to carry out his duty in strict compliance with extant rules and observe the highest sense of professionalism expected of an officer working at his level. Anamekwe served as Director, Inspectorate Office of the Accountant General of the Federation until the latest appointment. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says he will use his wealth of experience to move the country forward if given the mandate in 2023 general elections. He met the pledge during his visit to Katsina State to meet with delegates of the All Progressives Congress APC in the state ahead of the forthcoming presidential primary of the party later in the month.
The President has exposed me to all that there is to know about governing a complex and diverse country such as ours. I would want to say that I have learned, there is considerable experience, and the key issues that concern our country today, issues of security, issues of the economy, are issues that I believe we can do very well and that I am in a position to do quite a lot on.
Presidential aspirants under the platform of All Progressives Congress APC have been visiting delegates across the states of the Federation. Among the aspirants is the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, who visited party delegates in Dutse, Jigawa State. Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu was in Benue State, where he interfaced with delegates, while Chibuke Rotimi Amechi took his tour to Kwara State.
With the rest of us across the country, we will be with you. Get the assurance that Abuja is wealth of experience to hear.
What matters is how we are able to continue to deliver services to the people of Nigeria.
Meanwhile, the screening exercise for presidential aspirants of the All Progressives Congress, earlier scheduled for today, has been postponed. The party's National Publicity Secretary Felix Mokas said last night that a new date for the exercise will be announced. The national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Erecha Ayu, has expressed the optimism of the main opposition party for a free and fair 2023 general elections in line with the expectations of Nigerians. He stated this while playing host to a delegation of the European Union at the national headquarters of the party in Abuja.
In particular in view of the next elections, and I would like to reaffirm our support to Nigeria's democracy, and we continue to work together with all the institutions and with all the stakeholders that are involved.
As it is in the tradition of this party, we want our convention to be very transparent, will provide a fair and open field to everybody of all our 15 presidential aspirants.
From politics to security now, the people of Anambra State have cried out over what they described as alarming rate of insecurity, which according to them has assumed dangerous dimensions. The outcry is coming on the heels of the kidnap and gruesome murder of Okechukwu Okoye, a sitting lawmaker representing Agwata 2 constituency in the State House of Assembly.
It's a very sad development in the southeast. But as it stands now, you must have to go back to God.
Plan your life and where you're going on. Let your family member know where you're going. So is this not the time for one to say, I want to go and enjoy myself somewhere? No. You're in a serious situation.
The week-long study tour program by participants of the Senior Executive Course 44 National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies School to Ogun State has ended. The tour afforded participants the opportunity to interact with Ogun State heads of ministries, agencies and parastatals during the climax of the program.
To have digitalized the entire structure, digitalizing the process of transfer of learners from one school to the other. All public procurement is now done, online, and We publish details of contracts that are issued.
They will come up with the solutions and recommendations to the government, and they will present it to Mr. President in Council.
That's the highlights for the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Jumai and Kingsley after this break. I am Nolin Ebel Ame. Good morning.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Next is Business News with Comfort Ahmadu.
We know that there is a lot of potential for Nigeria, but the awareness is not there, especially from the policy-making point of view.
The Nigerian Export Promotion Council in 2019 emphasized that honey and other beehive products could generate $10 billion annually from local and international trade. With the African Continental Free Trade Area in sight, beekeepers, especially youths, are looking to leverage opportunities in the global markets.
The level of production in Nigeria is very low. We can rate it around 10% to the consumption need of the people, because we want to move from the mentality of social beekeeping practice that you have like one hive, two hive, into a commercial level where I can have more production to scale it up.
We believe if our products get exported, it's going to give us wider visibility on a larger scale, and also in the cases of loans and finances, if those could also be put in place, it will also help us. Those are some of the opportunities we want to leverage upon.
Efforts are also geared towards improving quality and standards of products targeted at the continental market. With Business News, Comfort Ahmadu.
Thank you very much, Comfort, for the business package. Next, newspaper review.
And our newspaper reviewer by Toby is in the studio. Good morning, Bias. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Welcome. I hope you rested very well. Tomorrow you can sleep.
Good to see you. Hope you have a pleasant weekend. Juma?
Yeah, we have a couple of papers this morning, and I'll begin with the Nigerian pilots. Just below the masthead, lawmakers beheading Soludo in shock, places 10 million naira reward for information on killers. You find details on page 5. Osun River Basin Authority reps probe them for selling over 2 billion government assets for 13 million. And the headlines we have in the Nigerian pilot: party primaries, Buhari bars SEF, VP governor's orders, with riders refuses to sign amended Electoral Act 2022, which would have included them. Provision of Section 84 subsection 8 excludes elected officers from taking part in primaries. PDP, in accordance with Section 84 subsection 8, barred such officers from primaries yesterday. National Assembly has corrected an unintended error which Buhari is yet to assent to. And you see the Champions League there. Manchester City are champions as remarkable comeback sees them beat Villa 3-2 to hand Pro Guardiola side the title of a euphoric Etihad. Well, Kesley, they won the Premier League yesterday.
Yeah, I thought you said Champions League.
I was watching this.
Champions. That's right. Champions of the English Premier League. Congratulations to them.
I don't know, Nigerian is there, or Ehenacho is part of Man City, isn't it?
Ehenacho is for Leicester.
For Leicester City.
Yeah, for Leicester City, yes. They used to, it was a very interesting match. And then, of course, in Scotland, 3 Nigerians who play for Rangers of Scotland. They won the equivalent of the FA Cup in Scotland. Yes. Although, of course, they had lost the final of the Europa League to Frankfurt Eintracht. But this was it was a pleasant weekend for them. Liverpool of course, will face up Real Madrid in the finals of the Champions League. These are the two most successful clubs in European soccer, of course, with Real Madrid having won the Champions League 13 times. The Spanish League also ended yesterday. Of course, 4 matches before the end of the before the end of La Liga, before the end of La Liga, Real Madrid had already won the trophy, and Barcelona came second. They were battered at home yesterday, 2-0. By the Yellow Submarines.
Our boys are doing well in the international scene. I hope it reflects back home when the Eagles play.
That's the challenge.
Yes. Now, alleged missing 177 billion naira, EFCC begins manhunt for 4 Rivers officials. You find details on page 4. Elect capable leaders in 2023 elections. U.S. Ambassador urges Nigerian youths. Details on page 9. We have made MINILS World-Class Labor Institute. That's coming from DG. Forget your tenure elongation plot. PDP cautions APC. You find that on page 7. Justice Ejimbe Eko bows out of the Supreme Court today. Details on page 8. Jonathan wants FG's arbitration cases handled only in Nigeria. And at the bottom plate of the Nigerian pilots, WHO raises alarm, warns Nigeria over outbreak spread of monkeypox. You find the details on page 6.
Okay, let's take a look at the window page of the Punch newspaper. As always, the front page is pretty busy with a number of stories. Subscribers kick as federal government slams 90 billion naira new tax on phone calls. Subscribers kick as federal government slams 90 billion naira new tax on phone calls. Nigerians spend $221 million on foreign education in 3 months. That's according to a central bank report. With frozen accounts of 50 firms operating loan apps, that's attributed to the Federal Competition Protection Commission. And then 2 earpieces there. Federal government makes health insurance compulsory for employers. Reps probe on remitted multi-million-dollar NPA revenue. Governorship primaries, that's the kicker for the lead story. Crisis rocks Rivers, Oyo, and Benue APCs, and factions reject delegates lists. Process queued in Rivers, no delegates election in Benue. Those are according to factional leaders. Adelabu and Folarin factions produced 2 delegates lists in Oyo, await NWC's verdict. Now the photographs there on the front page have the caption, Deborah, protesting Abuja, Kaduna, Benue, Plateau, and Osun churches, defy government ban, condemn jungle justice. And reps summon minister as agency auctions 2 billion naira assets for 13.6 million naira. That's page 35. Children at risk of severe monkeypox cases. That's attributed to the NCDC. Mob beats suspected car snatcher to death in Katsina. 1 killed as violence and parallel polls mar PDP primaries. Herdsmen attacks have paralyzed 21 Benue local governments, says Otom. Wike G3 Dagogo is contesting governorship, and Rivers PDP may not have candidate for election. That's according to a lawyer. Details on page 7. Bio.
Thank you, Kinsley.
Let's quickly go through the Nation newspaper so that we can talk about all the headlines. Above the masthead, we have APC insists on screening Jonathan Emefele Ngige. You find details on page 5. Can protest killing of Deborah. Islam abhors violence. You find details on page 6. Katsina to rebuild village with 100 million naira. Gunmen kill 4 children, mom, 2 others. Details on page 8 and 2. Drama, clashes, upsets at PDP reps assembly primaries with a kicker, opposition party to pick senatorial candidates today. And firms, businesses await CBI's decision on rates. Ex-convict returnee held for importing cocaine. Details on page 2. Emir counsels parents on education.
Thank you, Juma. Let's start with a story about a 3-story building under construction that collapsed in Freeman Street, Ikoyi, Lagos. 4 persons were reported killed, while 5 others were rescued. Spokesman for National Emergency Management Agency, Ibrahim Farinloye, says that the collapse was linked to torrential rainfall in Lagos. But meanwhile, the Lagos state government said it will prosecute the developer of the collapsed property identified as fumble, as the collapsed building was not approved. The Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Benga Omotosho, says that the builders were asked to stop but refused. They were building at night and on weekends. Meanwhile, laborers were working on the structure when it collapsed on them. The developer is said to have gone into hiding. In Anambra State, Honorable Okechukwu Okoye of Anambra State House of Assembly, abducted about a week ago, has been murdered. He and his aide were abducted on Sunday last week at about 5:30 p.m. On Saturday night, after 6 days of abduction, news emerged about his murder. He was reported to have been beheaded and his head dropped at a motor park by his murderers. Governor Chukwuma Soludo has placed 10 million naira bounty on any useful information that could be helped track down the criminals who killed Honorable Okoye. The aide of the lawmaker, Srele Chiboka, was also murdered. The governor, who has condoled the kinsmen of the legislator, says that he suspects that it is the same criminal gang that attacked him and killed about 3 policemen about 2 years ago. Anambra State, he says, will overcome these dark forces over it. The lawmaker is said to be from Sofia, and he represents the Agwata 2 constituency in the Anambra State House of Assembly. But meanwhile, communities in Lewi South local government area have also indicated that there are some criminal elements who have created a new camp at Unubi, and on Friday they had led to a stampede, a siege at Ugumba bus stop. There's a report that Juma read there now about a mother and 4 children that were killed. Again, this is also from Isulo in the Orumba local government area of Anambra State. The same criminal murderers are threatening to kill more Anambra legislators. So Anambra is becoming a critical point of focus. And you will recall that Governor Chukwuma Soludo has taken it upon himself. In fact, after resuming, he specifically conveyed a church service to pray to God to overcome the criminality. But of recent, the thing is going on ascendancy. Meanwhile, on the political scene, overtures are on by members of the 18 registered political parties to conclude all processes over their primaries as preparation for the 2023 election gets underway. Across the nation, some candidates for National Assembly and State Assemblies have emerged from the People's Democratic Party yesterday. Daily Trust reports that barring any set of presidential candidates are expected to emerge this week, and that is for the 2 political parties. The PDP has fixed the presidential primaries for Saturday, May 28 and May 29, while the All Progressive Congress is scheduled for Monday, May 29th and 30th of May. The 2 are set to be caught up in the web of politics around selecting presidential candidates. So far, between the 2 parties, there are 38 aspirants. 23 of them for the APC has 23 of them, while the PDP has about 15. About 11,500 delegates are expected to vote for the PDP, while that of the APC is put to about 3,700 for the PDP and a little more, 4,400 for the APC. The APC yesterday announced the postponement of the screening of presidential aspirants. There have been overtures silently about reaching consensus within the candidates, but there has not been any positive headway. Meanwhile, on the criminal scene, 24 parcels of substance suspected to be cocaine have been intercepted from at the Port Harcourt International Airport. They were recovered from somebody by name Okichuku Francis Amechi, who just finished serving a jail term for drug trafficking in Brazil, and he was also caught in Port Harcourt. He was found to have had 24 parcels that were concealed in lawnmower tires. In fact, the commodities were labeled. One was in gold, the second was in trust, the third was Isioma, and another was 18.6. These were believed to have been labels for the drugs. He says that somebody gave them to him to deliver to his brother in Port Harcourt. He's being grilled by the officers of the Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency. And in Kano State, the police command have intercepted a vehicle loaded with explosive device, guns, and ammunition. The police say that they followed a chase from a vehicle, a Mercedes-Benz, that was coming from Jigawa. And when the chase was hot, the occupants abandoned the vehicle at Bubugaji quarters in Kumbuso local government area. A team of explosive experts were able to recover the IEDs, including 2 AK-47, as well as several magazines and pistols that were only God knows where they were heading for, and an atrocity they would have committed with them.
The story from Anambra is a very sad one.
Sad. Very sad.
And the outrage that has greeted that piece of news is certainly not dying down just yet. And only on Friday on Good Morning Nigeria, we discussed the issue around the sanctity of life in this country, that there appears now to be a diminished value for life.
Yes.
North, south, east, west, central. Every so often you get to read and hear about reports of persons who have been murdered in gruesome circumstances.
Yes.
And that same Friday, there was a report quoting the Kaduna State government that in 90 days, some 360 persons have been killed. And those were official figures. That means 4 persons per day. Now, what has happened in Anambra, it's certainly something that should trigger not just outrage, but indeed appropriate response by the security and intelligence services. What was the motive for this murder? And how do you explain the barbarism of beheading in the 21st century? You behead a lawmaker and then you leave it in the visible location. There are some reports that there was a handwritten note placed inside I don't know, get into the details of all of that. A society must wake up at some point to say, look, enough. If the claim is that these were the same persons who had earlier attacked Sorudo while they were preparing for the Anambra governorship election sometime in the past. So they attacked and killed 3 policemen and they got away with it. And they were able to carry this out now. So I think that it is something that is horrifying. It's chilling to even contemplate what has happened. These are human beings that we are treating. There are decent ways, for instance, in dressing livestock.
You know, we're in the business of news, where at times it's, you open the news to see what's happening across the country with a lot of, fear of the unknown.
And then you are depressed.
You're depressed.
Yes,
it's depressing at times. And
in fact, the violence in Anambra of recent spilled over into Delta.
Yes.
Asaba and Onitsha, the share border. And the commissioner of police in Delta now had to stand up again against these same criminal gangs. And the good thing about it in Imo is that on 2 occasions, the police have now taken, the security agencies have now taken the war to the camp of some of the suspects believed to be separatist groups. And until more of such are done and they are overcome, we will continue to hear these gruesome killings in that part of the country.
Nigeria is a beautiful country. Nigerians love life, and I don't understand how we can take so much life. Like in the case of Kaduna, in 90 days, you can imagine that means 4 people every day. It's heartbreaking, it's disheartening.
Even in Lagos, 4 persons were also killed, suspected by cultists, and these were cult activities that were having place in K2 area of Lagos. In Ilorin, a 23-year-old student who was rusticated from University of Ilorin says that he has lost count of the number of persons he has killed.
At the end of the day, law enforcement is also important, and security protection is critical. And we can't just be walking around. Even in the jungle, there are rules of engagement. Anyone who watches National Geographic or any of those, there are rules of engagement. There are rules of engagement. It's not, and then sometimes you even find compassion across animal lines. I mean, instead of a lion to eat up some other animal, the lion tends to it and allows you to go. You know, when the lion has eaten, it has no need for any such thing. But if you're a leopard, you try and then attack the cub of a lion and climb to the tallest tree, the lions will chase you there, shake you down, and tear you apart.
Rightly. Well, Bayo, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
So we'll take a break now. When we return, our conversation will begin. Don't go away. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And as a prompt for our conversation this morning, which is on political parties, primaries, there is our correspondent, Ekene Dulio, with a background report.
The clock is ticking down to the 2023 general elections, and political activities are becoming intense across the country. Many have declared interest for the number 1 position in the country, and the number of aspirants is considered mind-boggling, especially for those on the platforms of the 2 major political parties, the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and the All Progressives Congress (APC). At the last count, APC has over 20 presidential aspirants, while 15 are on the list of the PDP. Narrowing down this number to 1 candidate is what the political parties must do at their primary elections, and from this week, delegates will be going to the polls to choose the candidates. The delegate election is another source of worry for the wider public, as there are fears that whoever emerges at the primaries will be a function of his ability to spend more than others. In fact, it is rumored that the current increase in the exchange rate of dollar to naira is due to the coming political party primaries, where politicians are expected to woo delegates with hard currency. This factor also highlights the importance of the delegate system and raises the question on how a few delegates determine the options available to millions of Nigerians who constitute the electorate. By June 3rd, the 18 registered political parties are expected to have picked their candidates according to the 2023 election timetable earlier released by INEC. With the presidential election slated for February 25, 2023, this will be the first time candidates who will emerge will have up to 6 months for their campaigns, as made possible by the Electoral Act 2022. Expectedly, the time frame is sufficient for the electorate to know the candidates by their fruits and the blueprints they will propose to fix Nigeria. But before then, the primaries are imminent, as well as the emergence of candidates for the political parties. What are the factors playing out already? On this episode of Good Morning Nigeria, guests will be speaking on issues around the upcoming primaries of the political parties.
Thank you very much, Ekene Ndule, for that background. Where the primaries have already commenced at the weekend, with the People's Democratic Party hosting in various states across the Federation the primaries for the State House of Assembly and House of Representatives. The APC, of course, is commencing its own later in the weekend. We'll have a recap of all of that with the presidential special conventions. With us in the studios to discuss issues around the party primaries, let's welcome Professor Tony Onyeshi. He's with the Department of Political Science at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and also a visiting professor at the University of Abuja. Professor Onyeshi, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you. My pleasure. Good morning, Nigerians.
Also here with us in the studios is Dr. Sharif Ghale Ibrahim, an associate professor at the Department of Political Science and International Relations at the University of Abuja, and a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. Sharif, delighted to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay.
And joining us from our Benin Network Center is Osaworo Okunzua, a public affairs analyst and family affairs on Good Morning Nigeria. You're welcome. Good morning, Nigeria. You're welcome.
Good morning, Jumai, my Kingsley, our compatriots with you in the studio. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, thanks a lot, Dr. Sawaro. We'll be with you shortly. Let's begin with Professor Tony Onyeshi. The People's Democratic Party, one of the 18 political parties registered for the 2023 elections, started their primaries at the weekend, and some of the stories, of course, we read out in the newspaper review a while ago. What do you see unfolding on the political scene? This is a very critical week, some would say.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it is very, very dicey because of a lot of reasons. From the legal perspective, if you like, I call it the hasty amendment of the already signed amended electoral bill, which is yet to receive assent from the president, is one of them. Some people have speculated that it raised some kind of legal issues, but I think after the PDP sought legal opinion, PDP must have been advised that private laws are subservient to public laws. So the subsisting electoral law is the thing that actually would prevail and govern that primary. So there was argument initially that the constitution of the party stated that must have a quorum, and the three-man ad hoc delegates that have been raised from the different states did not constitute two-thirds in terms of quorum. But I think there have been an argument that the subsisting law is the electoral law amended, signed, about last 2 months by the president, that the one that is re-amended has not been signed. So that's one way to look at it. From the political point of view, you look at the issue of democracy. You look at who constitutes the Congress of political parties. In a situation where you have less than half of those who constitute the members of the Congress of political parties electing. But not just that, let's look at more worrisome part of it. The more worrisome part of it is, what is the integrity, the democratic integrity of the process of getting the three-man delegates? So it's like setting a booby trap. It's like a time bomb. So if you exclude critical stakeholders operating at world, at local government and state levels, who are party officials, who are stakeholders, and they are not going to be part of the electorate in the primary election and electing the candidates of the party, your guess is as good as mine in terms of what is going to happen, in terms of the inclusive character of the outcome of what the PDP has started. I think I could definitely, given the requirement of the law, that even if you sign, you need some time, like 1 week, according to the act, for INEC to accept, So it has already begun, and it's already a fait accompli that we are going to run the primaries, except INEC adjusts, which I don't think it's possible, too late in the day. So I have a situation where people who, as you can see, the complaints and the reports that are coming from the states, you have complaints about the character, the democratic character, the process that produced the three-man delegate. In some states, they are in courts. So many states. And you have a lot of things. So it portends foreboding in terms of the character of general election first. He put it forward in terms of the stability, the unity of the parties that are going to contest, because you have some kind of shenanigans taking place where the people on the legislative side and the people on the executive side have been engaged in heated, mind games. You see what I'm saying? Battle of wits. Yes, you didn't. It was an innocent omission. It was an order of omission. So you did not think about statutory delegates. So you allowed Section 84(8) to go without including those who have actually been the main stakeholders in the party. And I think the people on the executive side, namely the governors, have seen an opportunity, and they are pressuring that maybe, I don't know, but there is speculation that they are also gleefully, they are enjoying the fact that the amended electoral act is not signed. So one danger that the portents is how are these people who have been excluded in the process of this primary election, how are they going to feel? And what implications does it have in terms of members of the party, particularly the critical stakeholders, uniting behind the candidate that will emerge? You see what I'm saying? So, all right, you have crises here and there.
Prof, thanks a lot. You've raised a number of issues. We'll, of course, be drilling into those issues in the course of this conversation. One of those issues has to do with the enabling legal environment under which the party primaries are being conducted. As we speak, the known piece of legislation is the Electoral Act 2022. That's what the political parties are operating by. Any party that conducts its primaries would have done so under the extant piece of legislation. There are also other issues relating to the process and procedures by the political parties, and that's why we should bring in Sheriff Gali Ibrahim here for his own take on what we are seeing initially with the People's Democratic Party.
You see, some of these particular legal processes determined by the Electoral Act, 2022, we should be looking at the issue of, first of all, nomination, qualification, disqualification, and the rest of them. And on the issue of, let me say, nomination, already IDEC has already issued a kind of a timetable and time frame that immediately after the primaries, for example, presidential and House of Representatives, let's say nomination, should actually, be tendered through the INEC web portal at least between, between 10th and 17th of June. While that of the gubernatorial as well as State House of Assembly members should be tendered to the INEC web portal at least between 1st and 15th of July. So these are some of the processes and activities that actually shape the conduct of the elections, which, earlier the political parties began to clamor for extension of, the conduct of primaries. And I was very happy when INEC came out clearly and said, look, primaries of political parties must be held between 14th of April and end on the 3rd of June. So I think I was very happy when INEC make this particular clear in order not to prolong unnecessarily the electioneering process as well as the timetable. So this will ensure that unnecessary engagement as well as conduct of primaries and other related matters will be done, in time. Then apart from this, the issue of, let me say, qualification or disqualification, which is actually contained in 84.3, which is the Electoral Act, Section 84, subsection 3, where it says that a political party shall not impose on any candidate a kind of nomination, disqualification, or qualification in its own constitution. It shouldn't actually take any measure or give conditions of qualification or disqualification on any candidate, except in sections 65, 66, 106, 107, 131, 137, 138 of the Federal Republic of Nigeria's 1999 Constitution, which says what? That if you can actually impose such qualifications or disqualifications by abiding by the Constitution, but a political party shouldn't unilaterally disqualify or qualify a candidate in its own Constitution, but that is exclusively the prerogative of the Constitution. And why do we have this? Is where it says that that particular person who wishes to occupy the seat of Senate must be a citizen of Nigeria and must be of at least 35 years of age, while those going for House of Representatives should be a citizen, citizens of Nigeria as well as at least 30 years of age. Then apart from this, the minimum qualification is school certificate. So which means that anything contrary to this, the political party can actually disqualify a candidate seeking to actually acquire any senatorial seat or a seat of the House of Representatives. Then apart from this, is only if that particular candidate is lunatic. Then you cannot allow that particular candidate, you can easily disqualify that particular candidate. And another issue is that if such candidate has once been convicted and sentenced of, for example, fraud or dishonesty, or if that particular candidate is under death sentence, you cannot actually take that particular candidate. But what actually makes me so conscientize, on this particular whole process is the issue that a person who has been formally accused or charged with embezzlement or fraud. So it means that we're going to have a serious legal implication, litigations immediately after the primaries, which is by and large a tradition and a culture in this. Then apart from this, we also look at the issue raised by Professor Onyeshi, the section 84.8, which brings about the statutory delegate and the rest of them. There is a kind of triangular factoral issue here, which I want us to understand. What are those? We are talking about the nature of political parties, the nature of elections, and the nature of the electorate. Then finally, these are all independent variables. Then we have a dependent variable, which is the state. So what am I saying here is that the nature of the political parties we have, the nature of elections we conduct, as well as the nature of the electorate we have, determine the nature of the state, in which we live. And how is that? Why? Because if the political parties are so backward, not supporting constitutionalism, internal struggle, internal constitution, not even the national constitution, not also bringing about the nature of elections, how we organize our elections, if they are not to actually ensure and guarantee the freedom of the electorate to actually make a proper choice for their own interests that will benefit the society as well as the economy itself, then we are going to have the ambience of a state that will continue to degenerate and become backward.
Indeed, Professor Onyeshi said that they're sort of setting up a time bomb, and it's just as if it's ready to explode. I'll stop you there. Let's now go to Dr. Osaworo Okonzo, and he's in Benin Network Center. Let's have your candid opinion at present of the primaries going on right now, and with APC, postponing its primaries for its presidential screening process itself. Our guests here in the studio are saying that these are critical times and it needs critical issues to be addressed by the electorate, including the politicians. Let's have your view on that.
Sir, Professor Onishi is saying a time bomb is being set up on account of how close the political parties are playing towards the deadline established by INEC. Yes, that is tenable. But it doesn't have to be automatically so long as they are able to do that by, say, midnight, June 2nd, or thereabout. The main issue is that the political parties are taking or making some kind of strategic considerations. There is a competition between the two major political parties, especially at the presidential level. So everybody is looking at, one is looking at the other to see the moves the other person is going to make, and so on and so forth. And what we can say in that regard is that the issue is being reduced to just contest for power grab, and a lot of national issues are being lost sight of. For instance, one issue that is dominating both political parties is where are you going to zone the presidency, for instance. They are big cagey about that. Whereas one of the political parties has it in its constitution that there will be a kind of zoning from one, if you want to call it the north and the south of Nigeria, the two political hemispheres, yeah, from one hemisphere to the other. So one political party has said it's not going that way anymore. It's going to throw it open. And the other political party that enjoys incumbency, for instance, is probably also assuring Nigerians that after a particular tenure of 8 years on the saddle, power is going to be flipped over to the other part of the country. So to that extent, it's like the investment in national integration is low. Some other considerations are already overshadowing investment in national integration. So maybe at the end of the day, when the primaries are done, we will know. And of course, the way things are being played out is many other issues that concern the welfare of the citizens are not out there yet. Of course, we need to see the candidates they are going to bring forward before the assessment can start in earnest, whether they have the capacity to actually address the issues we have in the country so far. But the way things are, I would like to see a political party that is going to offer Nigerians real reforms. A kind of formula that is going to address all our challenges. Kingsley is being very mournful about what has happened in Anambra and so on. So are most of our compatriots. So issue of security, issue of the economy, and so on. So it's an opportunity. That is actually the basic gain of our democracy. That the issues that concern the welfare of citizens should be at the front burner of our national discourse. So we expect our political parties to be more patriotic. We expect a lot of statesmanship to sprout, even at the 11th hour. And statesmanship can be sacrificial in a way. So we will need political parties to come right to the forefront, because they are going to be the organizing entities for whatever choices we are going to make next year when we are doing our general elections. So we expect a lot more from them. The way they are going to build the parties, the way they are going to organize themselves, the way they are going to mobilize, before the mass public will be invited to make a choice. So they need to sift these choices properly. That is the service they owe the country. There are so many issues out there to be addressed, and I do hope they will be attuned to these issues, not just a kind of power play that an external analyst has already told us we are somewhat bogged in. We need to talk about national issue, how to move Nigeria forward. Our ASU is on strike, our healthcare system is deemed to be parlous, and so on. We need proposals. We need to see what manifestos the parties have now and how those manifestos relate to our current condition in the country. So yeah, it's a dire period. So we need political parties to really dig deep and provide solution to the problems that are failing Nigeria as a nation currently.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Osawa Okunzwa, for your comments. You're looking at this now from an elevated point of view, like the other guests also spoke, in terms of the issues that should engage the political parties, the aspirants, and indeed the rest of us as a people. But we do know that for politicians and for political parties, what is critical now is process and procedure. That is to say, how do we get our candidates? How do we produce our candidates? I was just wondering, we will return to some of those critical points you raised earlier, Dr. Osawa, but looking at what we are saying from the weekend, the PDP, I'm sure the APC will have theirs from Thursday. It looks like same old story. You're having some cantankerous congresses where candidates, where aspirants and their supporters are bickering over delegates list, and then you're just asking yourself, what have we made of, so the parties now, made of all the clamor for direct, indirect, or consensus arrangements in getting their candidates?
I think that we concede their processes to them, so long as those processes don't run contrary to the rule of law that's supposed to be the very cornerstone of democracy. They are internal processes. What they owe the public, what they owe the Nigerian nation, is to make sure their candidates are fit and they are duly elected or selected. That is what the political parties own us. We're not supposed to be peering into people's bedrooms and knowing what they do, though the political parties are supposed to be transparent in their processes. Now, if they know who their delegates are, they know who their aspirants are, and they know the processes they want to operate, obviously, those who have complaints eventually will probably have recourse to the courts if they feel their rights have been denied or their rights have been suppressed. So long as there is no violence and the process is deemed to be clean and so on, for me, I don't have any problem with that. So long as, again, they don't run foul of the deadline set by INEC and so on. See, these are issues that have to do with party organization, party mobilization, and party building. It's not the thing that is going to happen or is going to be completed overnight. As our democracy keeps evolving, political parties themselves will keep learning and so on. And of course, the civil society as well can also hold their feet to the fire on this sort of issue to make sure their processes are compliant with laws and wholesome conventions. So I think we have to wait and wish them well as they select their candidates. What is important at the end of the day is that when they come to the general arena, where they have to compete against other political parties, how would they stand? How would they fare? That would be their concern. For as long as their candidates are ultimately fit or ultimately to handle the duties of any office they aspire to wield, I don't think we should have so much headache over that.
Indeed, thank you so much there. And coming back to the studio, Professor Onishi, every year, every 4 years, we hear all these rhetorics from politicians trying to garner support from delegates, but it's the same old story all the time. Do we have issue-based politics in Nigeria? How is it going to change? How do we begin to rejig our political process to ensure that the electoral process itself goes smoothly?
Yes, thank you very much. Let me just reply my colleague from the green zone just by saying yes, Nigerians should be interested, particularly this time, in the by the way, the extant constitution says it's only political party that will produce candidates for election. So you should be interested in the character of the process of producing those candidates. Because at the end of the day, you might produce all the candidates from the 18 political parties that might become objectionable. It has implications for the final selection. See what I'm saying? So you have objectionable, so it becomes up for grab by the strongest big man. Then the strongest big man presents 18 candidates for this presidential election. And what percentage of the electorate of Nigeria does he represent? You hear what I'm saying? So the issue is that, look, in America, where you have what you call open primaries, you see, the movement in the beginning of the second decade of the 20th century, for instance, Theodore Roosevelt, for instance, the progressive movement, came as a result of, party bosses nominating delegates. At the end of the day, it will be an elite affair. You see what I'm saying? This open primary system stipulates that non-party members can make, if you like, a pledge that they want to vote. So that's what we call open primaries, and some states in the United States subscribe to it because, of course, in the states we are not represented, but I know most of the institutional archetypes we run here are brought from Europe. But in America, where open their presidential system, you have open primaries where members, just somebody like you can say, look, I want to vote. I'm interested in voting for this candidate of this party.
Do you think it's going to be possible?
No, I'm telling you. You know the reason? The reason is that they saw, because in America you keep reforming to ensure that the greatest number has a chance and has a right to participate in deciding who governs. So it is very, very important. Back to your question, that is a reply to him. Then back to your question. You see, you have institutional problems. 2020, I gave a paper to, there was a 15th anniversary celebration of Anglican Bishop of Kubwa. The title of that paper is Nigeria at 60. And I said, Nigeria at 60, the rider of the title of my paper is Urgent Need to Cure a Potential Giant of Africa of its crippling institutional anemia. You know what anemia means? Nigerian political system suffers from institutional anemia. Let's begin. We are talking 774 local government chairmen that participate in National Convention of APC and PDP, for instance, plus their deputies will be coming to vote to determine candidates. They are coming to determine candidates on behalf of the man that appointed them, men and women. But we don't have so many women as local government chairmen. That is a matter for another day. But we found out that the State Independent Electoral Commission, of course, you know it's shambolic. It is in name. That epithet independent is in name. They are selected by the governors, and it is not just one governor. So if I'm groaning under the pressure of the selection process that my own governor is doing, it is not because of him. It is because of the institutional base of the top in which he is operating, which is the political system. So the institutional condition for parties of democracy is suffering from anemia. And you know what anemia means? The red blood, the correct red blood cells in the system. We might have blood, but it doesn't have the correct cell.
So how do we begin to infuse it?
So thank you very much. So I think a particular youth civil society called Yaga Africa moved for hashtag not too young to run. I think the next hashtag for Nigerian civil society will be too weak to hold democracy. Our institutions are too weak to hold democracy. And don't just blame any person. After Barack Obama was elected late 2008, guess what? He wanted to talk to Africans. He was worried because he has an African blood. He decided that he was coming to Ghana. It was not by accident, to stay at the background of the giant, so-called giant of Africa, which are called potential giants. We have not done anything to show we are giant. It's in potentiality. You see what I'm saying? It's in latency. But this institutional problems are stopping us. He came to Ghana. He addressed African leaders. As a parting gift, he told them, African statesmen should pursue the project of building strong institutions and not strong men. That was his last word, and he left. As if that was not enough, Hillary came the same year. And he came to Nigeria. The Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, after he finished, they received her everything. He said he wanted to see the stakeholders from all parties. He wanted to see them in Yaradua place, Yaradua central area. He finished with them. They draw the curtain and the parting gift. He said, I want to corroborate my boss with a statement to African leaders in Ghana. Nigerian politicians, statesmen should seek to build strong institutions. The problem we have, parties, okay, there's no ideology. Parties are not run on an ideological basis. And my head of department here will agree with me. It's not run on the basis of ideas and principles. In the past 2 months or so, it's been who is sponsoring you? Who are you coming from? Which zone is producing? And hapless Nigerian citizens, we are just looking at them. So, it's like an elite consensus. They're not talking about who is coming, which list are you coming. At the state level, we are waiting. The government has not anointed. What? Country? More than 200 million people? I'm sure not less than 40% of them very enlightened by universal standard. But all of us have submitted ourselves to. The governor has not anointed his successor. At a point, they wanted to moon such a thing around the president. But I'm happy to hear that one day, the last interview, the president said, my successor will be who the Nigerians have decided. I like that. It was and people are saying, this is the Buhari we know. And then what we are hearing, governor has not anointed. Governor has not anointed. One man, in my own state, 3.5 million people, and one man, people are waiting for one man to anoint a successor. So we have surrendered our critical faculty. We have surrendered our sense of judgment to one man whom we have elected. And that's in all the states. It's not only my state, it's not only any other state. It's all the states.
So nothing has changed?
Because the social condition has not changed.
Okay, Professor Yushi, thanks a lot for your perspective. Dr. Gali Ibrahim, I still want us to talk about process and procedure. I know you talked about the role of the political parties. This is a very busy week for them. In fact, since last week, when they have been screening the aspirants before contesting the election, before contesting the primaries, because we know how critical that is. Because if an unqualified candidate emerges, it is to the detriment of the candidate and the party itself. But if you recall, in the process of enacting the Electoral Act 2022, there was a lot of debate, and I think we had you on the program as our guest, around what mode of primaries to adopt. Professor Oyushi has talked about open primaries. I remember that issue also came up, whether closed or open primaries. Closed primaries being within the political party, open primaries being transcendental. But here we are seeing one of the larger political parties, there are 18 of them, we keep recognizing that fact, kicking off its primaries. And as I preface my question to Dr. Osawaro, the same old challenges. In Lagos, you couldn't conduct your primaries immediately. Imo has been postponed indefinitely. Elsewhere, you've had some confusion as to who has emerged. There's some hung voting in Delta relating to the House of Reps primaries. Let's see. Now we have the piece of legislation that says do direct or indirect or consensus. From the examples that we are seeing so far, what's playing out? Is it that we're having challenges, or the parties are having challenges just getting it right with themselves?
Okay. I can actually say that this can be interpreted by the Section 848, which says that a political party, has the right to determine the mode of operation, as it relates to delegate in terms of voting. So they should actually determine either in their constitution or in their rules the pattern of voting by delegate. So sometimes in Nigeria you need to make a law definitive so that it's either you follow it or you break it. But sometimes if you give people a choice, they might decide to abuse it. So why do we see this? And it is based on this that PDP said, all right, we are embracing the fact that all our delegates should be elected, representatives, or delegate. And that is why they actually relied on this particular section 848. So if we had the Electoral Act says, all right, this is the mode, this is the procedure, this is the modus operandi, then everybody, should actually follow. That wouldn't have necessitated postponement or even a double standard, and what we have seen transpiring, in the process of the primaries. So I think it's one of the major loopholes of giving that particular choice. And by extension, if you critically look at the situation, the tripartite, conditions given, either consensus, direct or indirect. What I was saying is actually subjected to indirect elections. Political parties who wish to conduct direct elections, now they should determine the procedure and process in their constitution or rules or guidelines, the pattern of voting, of the delegate. But you will understand that some of these political parties at the dying minute accepting the indirect might now try to venture into consensus, because we are seeing so many of them prior to now even withdrawing. And there is also the withdrawal form does not even determine for you to state clearly you are withdrawing for whom, which the Electoral Act says that you should withdraw, and while withdrawing, and you should provide a consent that you are actually withdrawing in favor of this. So the Electoral Act, the withdrawal form does not actually contain this. So now coming down to what my professor here said earlier about the political parties, and that is why I perceive the issue of competition, the issue of interest, and the issue of connectivity. In Nigeria today, people do not determine their leadership. People do not determine who governs. People do not determine the democratic processes. And that is why if you go back since the collapse of the First Republic, you observe that the coming of the military has been competitive, either from this particular region. If it was taken over by people from this region, then people from this region will also compete, and we also want to govern militarily. And that is how it has continued. Competition in that. Then coming down to each particular leader want to cede power to the person with whom they share the same interest. And that is why if you come down to Babangida, for example, with the interception of the national interim government, but it was actually planned directly. The interest was that after Babangida, Abuja should come. So Abuja now came. This was the interest. Then when Obasanjo came in 1999 and 2003, 2007, now there were many people who were aspiring to actually occupy the presidential seat. But he said no. Why? Because he had that particular interest, of himself, which he tried to pursue. And he went to Katsina State and brought in Eradua. This is a matter of interest. It wasn't Nigerians that determined. It was Obasanjo, and even treating other aspirants, not to contest or to withdraw. Allow this man to contest. And then it continued with the demise of Eradua. Now coming down to connection or connectivity. People were actually jostling, to occupy the plum seat. But what happened? That particular political connection, party connection, did not allow other individuals, to compete with Goodluck Ebele Jonathan due to his connectivity with the demised president, who was President Umaru Yar'Adua. So these are some of the tripartite factors. The issue of competition, the issue of interest, the issue of connectivity in Nigerian politics, not the Nigerian electorate or masses, and that has not changed up to now. Why? Because you made mention of issue-based election, looking at the manifesto. I'm telling you this now, if you go and interview some of these politicians, they don't even know the manifesto of either APC or PDP. Go and interview the councillors, the chairman of local government, or those who are aspiring to be. Just make a call to Route 1 and ask them what is the manifesto, even the delegate. So it is not an issue-based election or campaign, but a money-based election or campaign. Why? Because in the report, we have seen someone mention of in cash currency, people receiving money, and that is what determines. And it was only in 2015 the conscientization process reached to the peak, because Nigerians suffered, like never before, and they really wanted the change. And that is why the ruling party, thank God to President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, who actually conceded defeat and agreed to actually abdicate. Why? Because if the PDP had wanted to have actually said, no, we won the elections. But Nigerians wanted, the atmosphere was very clear. Nigerians really wanted a political and economic change because of the suffering. And that is why there was a paradigm shift in the political culture, in the political behavior of Nigerians in 2015. But Nigerians develop resentment due to the disappointment, because what they expected since 2015 democracy to provide for them, it did not provide. Rather, increasing unemployment, increasing poverty level, educational sector, let me say whining, and other so many variables that are actually dysfunctional in the society. So Nigerians experience this, but Nigerians never learn such lesson. And that is why I earlier made mention of the political parties, the electoral process itself, as well as the electorate. The state is actually dependent on all these particular variables. Why? Because you as delegate, you do not clearly look at who is the most responsible candidate to actually represent us, but they are looking for the highest bidder, who brings 1 million and who doubles it. That is what actually determines, and even a common man who has never gone to school is aware of this particular trend. Then what do we expect? Now the political parties have candidates, and among this particular candidate they also have their choice. But they are not going to say that because the Electoral Act and the Constitution does not allow the political party to actually qualify or disqualify a candidate. But they indirectly do that, and they pump money into that particular candidate so that for that candidate to buy delegates. And the more cash you have in your pocket or in your boxes, the more delegates you are going to win. That is the process in the contemporary Nigeria's political structuration.
Professor Gali, you've, raised a lot of pertinent questions here and concerning our electoral process. Let's now join Dr. Osawaro in Benin. Dr. Osawaro, you heard about Professor Onyishi talking about the American democracy, Professor Gali talking about a paradigm shift in 2015. What is happening? Are we still looking at godfatherism, money power, son of the soil syndrome in our political process still and sliding back to the way it used to be, or are we moving forward?
Well, I'm not in the mood to contradict Professor Onyisi on some issues, but I'd rather talk about Nigerian democracy even as it is evolving, because there are so many lessons the American democracy can also borrow from us. Yes, we are a newer democracy in some aspects. The issue of leadership selection is not just about political parties or how candidates are projected for general elections. All our institutions. So it's a thing we have to pay attention to fundamentally, but because political leadership is very important and somewhat overarching, maybe more stress on that. The issue is that political parties enjoy a kind of oligopoly. He is also admitted that we don't have an independent candidate. So the political parties have a say who their candidates will be, because what any political party says when he projects a candidate is that we believe he is going to beat the candidates from other political parties. He will be a better senator for these districts. Therefore, we are pushing him forward. That's what the political party says. So if a political party is taking a risk in bringing forward a weak candidate, we have to wish that political party well. So what is the opposing political party doing to counteract that? That is why it's a competition. That is why Nigeria is not a one-party state. Though we have two political parties practically, but at local levels, some of these flash parties can also compete effectively. They don't have to say they want to spread their wings all over the nation. They may not have the capacity. So in my own state, for instance, though, we have PDP here, we have APC here, but we also have SDP and other political parties. So competing locally, even for one local government, a political party can say want to focus on these local governments, say Oredo or Ikubaoka, where I'm from, and then make hay there. From make a start, begin to spread, begin to impress people, and so on. So it's up to the political parties. They're already registered. Let them express themselves. Now, for me, I don't think there is any need to be mournful about where we are. I think we just need to be patient with our democratic process. The imperfections are there, but we have to keep improving stage by stage. And I can say, in all honesty, that the stage we are now is probably the best we have been since 1999. Because currently, we have two political parties that are nearly equal in strength. Say some 8 years ago or so, if a political party nominated you as a candidate, you could go celebrating that you already won the seat. But it's not so today. Look at, we're talking about nearly 40 candidates for our presidential election. It was not always so. So let us filter them. Let us see who is strongest amongst them, money spending or no money spending, because that is a thing that is common to everybody. So in spite of this, who amongst them will be the best answer to our current challenges? That should be the interest of the mass public currently. We are not going to say democracy in Nigeria will be perfect overnight. No, we have to take it step by step. But so far, so good. We are steady. Let the political parties do whatever they are doing in observance of their internal processes. Let them obey or keep faith with the deadline set by INEC. And let them start campaigning. Let them see the content of their manifesto, their programs. And when the general elections come next year, maybe the public will be mobilized or educated to choose amongst the options available to us. I think we are on course in that regard.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Osawaru and Professor Onyeshi, as well as Dr. Gali Ibrahim. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation. All right. You're welcome back. And it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on NTA's network service. All our three guests are still with us. Dr. Okunzuwa in Benin, Professor Onyeshi here in the Abuja studios, as well as Gali Ibrahim also here in the Abuja studios. Earlier, Gali, when you were talking about qualification and disqualification, we said we're going to keep that issue in abeyance. I want us to return to it now. And the foundation for this would be to remind ourselves of what happened in Bayelsa only a couple of years ago. When the APC won the election, the governorship election is off cycle from the rest of the general election, and the then governor-elect was actually rehearsing the parade at the stadium in Yenagoa when an aide, of course, told him that there was a phone call from Abuja that the Supreme Court had decided a very critical issue, that namely his running mate was not qualified because he had multiple identities in multiple certificates. And I recall that we took on that matter on Good Morning Nigeria. I wouldn't know whether you were with us or Dr. Osawa. Ultimately, the consensus of the conversations was that it is the duty of political parties to ensure that it presents competent, if we say legally competent and qualified persons to stand elections. And the political party cannot blame a third person or a third party for its failure to screen its own candidates to be sure that, look, you have the right qualifications, you have no legal or constitutional liabilities. The APC, we understand, has now postponed the screening of its many aspirants. A number of political parties are taking this business very seriously. But as you were saying, this is not a wastemaker process. There are objective criteria for determining, who an aspirant would be for him to, in the first instance, contest the primaries. Because once he emerges a candidate, you are stuck with him.
No matter what the level of interest is, for political party in a particular candidate, it should be able to jettison that particular interest and uphold the provision of the Constitution. Because as a political party, you're trying to screen out candidates. The Electoral Act has said it that you have no prerogative to actually qualify or disqualify a candidate, but you have to strictly look at the Constitution, which I made mention of earlier, Section 65, Section 66, 106, 107, 131, 137, 177, as well as 178 of 1999 Constitution as amended. In some of these particular cases, you understand that for you to seek for the seat of Senate or House of Representatives, you must not voluntarily acquire for citizenship of another country, except with the provision of Section 28, which allows for dual citizenship. Even the dual citizenship, you must be a Nigerian by birth, not Nigerian by marriage or by any other means. You must be a Nigerian by birth before you be able to acquire that. So you can see that you cannot voluntarily acquire citizenship in another state, while seeking this particular seat of Senate or House of Reps, except with Section 28, which is dual citizenship. Dual citizenship, you must be a Nigerian by birth. Then secondly, an aspirant must not belong to a secret cult or secret society.
How would you know that?
Yeah, that is it. Because if you accept a candidate and later there is litigation and the claims are that he's a secret cult member, then it goes to the court and it is confirmed, then definitely that particular candidate will actually be jettisoned. So that is it. It's according to the Constitution. And if you want this, you go to this Section 66. Section 66(1), A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. You look at all these particular things. Then apart from this, a candidate must not present fake particulars. Fake particulars in the sense that all the particulars he is presenting must be original and must have not been doctored by any institution or any agency. Because if you know that the particulars of a candidate are full of ambiguity and they are not original and you are presenting him for elections, then definitely you have to be prepared to bear the consequences. Then apart from this, one major issue that actually baffles me is the issue of that particular person has never been accused or charged with embezzlement or fraud. This is the case. This is the Constitution of Nigeria, Section 66, subsection 1H. Now, looking at the candidate, especially those with political office experiences, if you are to critically look at now, EFCC has a big work to do here. Why? Because it seems to be the only institution that can salvage this particular country as well as sanitize the political terrain. Now you have to go back into the political history of these particular individuals. Have they ever been accused or charged, with embezzlement, with fraud? These are some of the things. And that is why I told you that we're going to experience serious litigations, just as it has been traditionally, ensued immediately after the primaries, because so many things will come up. Candidate A, candidate B will now see the, inherent disqualification of the candidate already approved, or selected by a political party. Then apart from this...
Dr. Gary Ibrahim, let's clarify this. The mere allegation is not sufficient to disqualify. That's why earlier we were talking about objective criteria, some of which we have listed. The concerned candidate must have to be disqualified, be convicted of an offense related to embezzlement or fraud, and that will have to be within 10 years before the process for election. Even if a person is convicted of fraud, if this happened 20 years ago, that doesn't then serve as a ground for disqualification.
You must have reform.
That's to say, it's not that the point you were explaining. You were saying that an allegation of you have all kinds of allegations. It is for the prosecution to prove its case beyond reasonable doubt and exhaust all the legal process right up to the Supreme Court before you say a person has been convicted of embezzlement or fraud or the acts of dishonesty and so on.
Yes, there are three areas here. The first one is 66(1)(c), which says that a person who is under a death sentence or a sentence of imprisonment or fine for any offense, especially while relating to fraud and dishonesty. So such candidate is constitutionally disqualified. Then the second one is Section 66, subsection 1D. Person who has been convicted and sentenced for a crime relating to dishonesty at least 10 years before the date of the election. This particular person is also constitutionally disqualified. Then this one is Section 66, subsection 1H, which states that a person who has been formally accused or even charged with embezzlement or fraud, this person is also constitutionally disqualified. So this is 1999 Constitution as amended.
Gary Ibrahim, thank you. I mean, you are our guest, and I am only one of the two anchors. Let's be clear about this. It doesn't talk about somebody who's been charged. And perhaps what you want to refer to has to do with the outcome of an administrative tribunal of inquiry into issues related concerning the fraud or embezzlement and so on and so forth. That would be the equivalent of a judicial commission of inquiry.
Let's say the accusations are confirmed.
Well, of course, that's to say a judicial commission of inquiry. Let us not forget something that happened in the past when Atiku was vice president and they were having a running battle with his boss, President Olusegun Obasanjo, and an administrative panel was set up, and the administrative panel reached the conclusion that the then vice president ran afoul of his terms of reference. And then that became a ground to campaign for Atiku Abubakar to be removed from office as vice president. But of course, the matter was then struck down and said, look, that wasn't the right thing. And we then had an amendment subsequently that didn't bring this about. But the key points that you have raised are noted in terms of grounds for disqualification, but more particularly is the rigor that the political parties themselves have to now undertake in screening out. It's fairly easy. I mean, if I don't know what the contents of the forms are, to say what do you need to fill. It's like you fill in the form. Have you ever been convicted of an offense? If it is for you to say yes or no, and you write no when it is yes, even if you have been pardoned, the next line will be say indicate whether you got a pardon or the nature of the offense. So those are the particulars that are very very critical.
And sometimes, Kingsley, the political party is not fully aware of the history of that particular person.
I agree.
It's just like the saying, if you want your history known, join politics. So it is the opposition. The opposition will actually begin to dig, from cradle. Where have you been and what have been your, activities and everything. Then before they begin to dig out all these particular issues and finally they get you disqualified.
Yes. Thank you. I was just wondering, Professor Onyeshi, well, all of this process being undertaken by the political parties, screening the aspirants, as we said, against the backdrop of what happened in February 2020 when the PDP was declared the winner of the Bayelsa election on account of the disqualification of the then running mate. Political parties are doing this. It would ultimately also help in perhaps reducing the load of judicial review of cases arising from maybe a third party or another party, an opposition party, snooping to say, no, this person has some legal or constitutional disqualification that we should pursue and then see how we win at the election through the judiciary.
Yes, I agree with you. It is important for political parties to do that, but you have to look at the issue of culture. What has been the culture? Is it the culture of being, if you like, detailed or being circumspect? When you look at the struggle at the grassroots level, state level, and then the struggle about which candidate gets nominated and all that. That is what takes the foreground. That's what preoccupies them. So the thoroughness, the circumspection that political party is required to take it does not happen in most cases. You see what I'm saying? They are too busy with who wins over who. You see what I'm saying? The rat race, the wits end battle that take place, the attempt to maneuver and counter maneuver. They do not allow this thoroughness, this circumspection, this attempt on the part of political parties to show that they come up very clean in terms of the candidate they present. But that's not, and that is the reason, and it has the reason. The source is the fact that let my candidates go. Let them go to court, and the court will decide it. So if you see the language of political parties, the leading gladiators in political parties, well, let my candidate go, let the court decide. They are too hasty to engage in this circumspection. They are too hasty to engage in this thoroughness
You see what I'm saying? Because the issue is not the identity of the candidate. It is the interests the big players have in the candidate. So the big players wrestle and fall over, head over heels, wrestle among themselves to have their candidate through, and then begin to reflect upon the character and the integrity and the identity of candidates later. And that is why the thing leaves the foreground of the bar and the bench, saturated with, if you like, applications and counter applications. Are you follow what I'm saying? Yes. So, and it reflects also in the question you asked about manifesto, because we talk past ourselves and we're not talking about what is the character of governance that is going to come subsequently. It is who comes in, I remember in 2015, I presented something on between man and his institution, intra-party politics and virtual democracy in Nigeria. University of Bristol, 2015. One American professor said, what he got from Tony's contribution is that in Nigeria, the problem is the problem of personal power. The hankering and the absorption, in personal power, increasing personal power, does not allow that kind of circumspective reflection that will say, okay, let's do this thoroughly. Let's make sure that who we present will come clean. Because on the other side, other parties are not doing the same thing. And that's why I have my apprehension about allowing political parties to do their thing as a family thing. I have asked a hypothetical question. Assuming 18 persons who have emerged from a process husbanded by less than 0.001% of Nigerians are presented for us to choose among, and we don't have a chance of independent candidates. There's a lot of job for the civil society, and that's why I say maybe the next hashtag for national campaign will be 2 weeks to hold democracy, the institutional condition. It is not their fault. I've said this.
Indeed. Okay. It's not their fault. We have
to, on the part of the populace, on the part of the society, because every society gets the government it deserves.
It has a huge role to play.
Thank you very much. The civil society, just like we moved and the president signed the electoral amendment law, which they are now asking him to sign again, anyway, after the mistake has been made. Nigerians, the civil society, can also move for amendment of the constitution. The constitutional basis for the operation is flawed.
Dr. Osaworo, let's have your views on that.
Well, it is good that our compatriots within the studio wish for a better day for our democracy. But the way we are currently, for as long as the rules and the guidelines are obeyed, I will be content with those. And any political party that is fielding a candidate will know that it is actually entertaining a risk. Just like Kingsley was talking about the Bayelsa spectacle or even debacle, when a party had already won an election, and as the top flag bearer was about to be sworn in, he was giving a kind of life-changing call that the Supreme Court says no, because your running mate was defective in his qualification claims, and so on and so forth. So that sort of risk every political party bears. And then talking about America that Professor Nishi is referring to, opposition research needs to be stronger in Nigeria, because we are talking about who occupies an office. If a senator represents those South Senatorial districts where I'm from, for instance, he's for everybody, not for APC or PDP. He's a senator for those South Senatorial districts. He may be sponsored by PDP, he may have been sponsored by APC. So everybody has an interest to ensure that that senator or the candidate for the senatorial race in Edo South is a fit and proper person. So if his party is going to collude with him or is going to look the other way, the opposition party has a right, as part of his own competition, to make sure he did not crop the perch. And any citizen here too can also point things out to say, oh, this man is an ex-convict and so on and so forth, and therefore it's unqualified. So for now, that the political parties, as I said a while ago, enjoy a kind of oligopoly, we have to stick with that. We don't have independent candidates yet. So whatever political parties are doing, they have to imbue it some kind of statesmanship, yes, but it's to be hoped they will do that. But the way things are now, once they say they are competing, they should compete knowing all the risk they are bearing at a particular point in time. If you bring a candidate that doesn't enjoy popular appeal in your constituency, you stand the risk of losing. If you bring a candidate that is not qualified in the first instance, you stand the risk of him being knocked off by the courts or by some other means. So these things are already there. Let us just play them out. Let us play them out. Let the political parties conduct their primaries. Let them keep INEC deadline. Let them provide people who can fill the offices on a competitive basis. And we hope our democracy continuously thrive.
Thank you so much, Dr. So, Professor Gali, before we go briefly, will the political parties, with all the intrigues going on, meet the June 3rd deadline?
Yeah, yes, of course. If they fail to actually make the deadline, definitely INEC has already said that they will actually find their candidate rejected. That is it. If you fail to actually comply with the Electoral Act, with the rules and regulations governing the elections, your candidate name will not even appear on the election list.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of today's conversation. We hope we'll have time to get into another aspect of what is interesting in the primaries so far conducted. In Delta State, for instance, there's some very interesting development there. Since 1999, Delta State has had 3 governors, James Ibori, Uduaghan, and now Senator Ifeanyi Okowa. 3 daughters from each of the governors are seeking, each of them they're seeking to be the flag bearer in respective constituencies for the PDP. Okowa's daughter won the primaries for the State House of Assembly. Ibori's daughter is seeking to come to the Federal House of Representatives. She had a tie, so they're going to have a rerun. Uduaghan's daughter lost in the race to be the flag bearer for the party in the State House of Assembly. So very interesting development.
Well, I'm glad that more women are coming up.
That's right. That's the former, if you like, former first daughters of the state. And they are seeking to run for office. It's an interesting development, and we'll see how that plays out. Okay. So, Gali Ibrahim, Associate Professor, Department of Political Science and International Relations, University of Abuja, thank you for being our guest this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, Professor Tony Oishi, who is of the Department of Public Admin and Local Government at University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and also a visiting Professor of Post Science and International Relations at University of Abuja. Thank you for being our guest.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Sawaru Okunzuwa, regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, Public Affairs Analyst. A delight having you always from our Benin studios. Thank you. All right, so that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Join us again tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Enjoy yourselves. I'm Kingsley. Thank you.